Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dicing with Death. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Hello, I am doing well. How are you?
I'm very good.
As
I
he
have
sips his beverage.
my coffee. Yes, I have changed the lighting in my room, which hopefully you guys won't notice. But instead of having the two giant stage lights pointed directly at my eyeballs and my face, pointed them to the sides, and I think it gives enough ambient lighting that things are still lit. And now I'm not staring into the brightness of 1,000 suns all day.
Pro tip from an expert here. If you don't like the lighting in your room, just move your room.
Oh, really?
Yeah. To
Just
face
buy
the
a new
light.
house to face the proper lighting.
It's really working out over here.
How is the new abode?
Settling in. We still got way too much shit everywhere. Downsizing. Yeah, mostly it's not having a garage in this place. And all of a sudden, all of our garage things are spilling into the living room. It's like, why? What do we even do with all of this potting soil or whatever? Right?
Nice. Do you have room for your second fridge?
Tires.
For your deer?
The meat fridge.
Yeah, the meat locker. Is there even room for that?
It is currently in the living room.
Nice. Yeah, so that you can just get meat while you're watching TV, right? Game of Thrones, you just reach in and...
frozen, so maybe even more Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is that horizontal painting above your television behind you?
It's a painting of sea creatures.
It looked like jellyfish, but I couldn't see.
Anatomically accurate. Yeah, a friend of ours did it. I'm sure you've probably seen it. It's been... had it hanging up for a while. I don't know when the last time you visited was, but
it's been years. Yeah. Well,
and I got to figure out. This was like a closet door that I'm standing next to, but I'm missing an opportunity to have a weird thing angled there. I don't know,
like a picture or a painting or something.
I just shut it to close, so you have to look at my shirts. Into the abyss. That was the previous setup, right? You just look into the abyss of my closet over my back.
Yeah. Watch people crawl into it from time to time.
Yeah. We'll see.
Right. Well, since we don't have a recap, let's just do our own recap. You sieged Pinespur 1.
Yes, the enemies of House Winter lie dead at our feet.
Very much so.
The forces of Eridon, the interlopers, have finally been shattered, broken.
And it's as you are looking through the remains of Pinespur that
Hold on, Pinespur doesn't get sacked. We crushed their armies and sent them scattering. And broke through the wall.
Oh, you're not going to burn the city to the ground?
No, why would I burn my city to the ground?
Because you're an undead horde attacking a civilized place.
I mean,
that's sort of just the assumption.
There were many sacrifices, but no, I mean, I don't think so.
Okay.
Where did we leave off last? We crushed the army, broke through the palisade wall, and marched in towards the city center. I think the Pretender Lord is still boarded up in the keep. Correct?
That's where I was going to get to next.
We ended with an encounter with a goddess of winter, a lovely benefactor with a bag full of heads.
Bag full of heads, yes.
Who did not rouse the attention of the armies of winter, right? The living dead.
Correct.
The undead.
She walked through them peacefully.
A marked woman. Or something else. Cool. Recappy enough?
Recapped enough.
All right, so Malcifer is standing before a pile of heads, right? How many in all?
I think I said 6 heads, 2 women for men? Is that what?
Something like that.
I don't remember exactly what I said, but something to that effect.
Yeah, many of which are adorned tattoos with religious iconography.
Mm-hmm.
The three-ringed triangle of a stair.
Mm-hmm. The interlocking
So,
hoops of Martha.
So presume there's Martha tattoos. That's like getting mom tattooed on your bicep.
Only the toughest of men get mom tattooed on them. These people
Except
must have
these
been real badasses.
These are presumably the high clergy of Pine Spur.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that the soldiers did not put up much resistance. That fight could have gone very differently if they had, like, priests of Astaire amongst their ranks blessing the
living.
soldiers,
or someone there to turn undead just as the Blood Knights reach the top of the wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could have been a very different experience.
I think that might have been fun. Would have given more for Malcifer to do, right? To have like opposing willpower magic offs with priests.
Mm-hmm.
But I think given how close that the siege was, it would not have gone well. So I think we want to level Malcifer up. I've captured some souls, but I think that was mostly the dying soldiers.
Right, you got like 83
and
years.
I probably can't, like, there's still, we should do math, right?
Math?
Right. Math. It's math time. We need to count the dead, right? Or at least my dead.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, let's go back
Might as well do some spreadsheeting.
Let's go back to Pine Spur, zoom out, and try and get an idea of the dead here. Okay, let us... I'm going to gather your remaining skeleton groups together and count who's left. Let's see. These guys are all here. Oh, God.
All right, so I'm pulling out my Winter's Reach spreadsheet. Oh, man. Is this real? Before the battle, I had 662 undead minions. Can that be true? That's doubling.
Seems double.
Because I've also got the full company in there. Yeah, that's okay. It was more like 300.
Yeah, that sounds more reasonable. All right, so you should have 9 Blood Knights left. I think you left one behind, though.
Yeah, that one is back at Winter's Reach.
Okay, so
9. That's so weird. We were devastated. All right, I'm just gonna. It's happening. Although those corpses are still useful, but we've got even more night corpses. We'll level up in range. All right, how many skeletons fell? Or what are you doing next?
I'm doing the skeletal warriors. You've got 4 full, 4, 5. You've got 6 full groups of skeletal warriors.
Some of those
so
are
6
archers.
times 8. Yeah,
I think it's 2 groups of archers left, right? And
you should have 48 skeletal warriors. At this point, they're interchangeable, so you can just switch their gear around back and forth if you'd like.
Okay. All right.
And then for regular skeletons, you've got 8, 16, 16, 17, 18, 23, 24, 32 regular skeletons.
Dang. So our losses are over 100. We started with 120 regular skeletons. Oh, and all the ghouls died.
All
right?
the ghouls died. Your
Actually, not
special.
all. I have 31.
No, they all died.
31 seems like an odd number is all I'm thinking. Some of those are with the hunting company. So how many?
Right.
I lost, I think.
You had 2 groups of ghouls?
I think I had 4.
3.
More.
3, 4. 4 groups of ghouls. Yeah. So 4 times 8 is 32.
And how are they accounted for elsewhere? All right, I'm just going to delete all my ghouls then, I guess. There should have been 3 left with the skeletal company, which would bring me to, is it 28 ghouls? Were there specialists with the ghouls or something?
Maybe you had a half group of ghouls too. I don't remember exactly
that must
how
have
we
been
started.
what it was.
Yeah.
a half, because 3.5 would be 28, which makes my math make sense. So there are 3 ghouls left with hunters.
Perfect.
How many specialists went down?
I think your specialists will all with your skeletal warriors, right?
Yeah, I lost a couple companies though, and I assume a special. Well, but I
A
just
couple
lost.
spears, you mean? Not companies. A
Spears.
company's 100 units. A spear is
But
a
we've already
group of 8.
accounted for the deaths, so no specialists died. I could swap
Right.
out specialists for regular skeletons if you think that would be fair. Otherwise, it's not.
No, I think no specialists died. They were not told to fight. They were told to just direct. So
Okay, and I still have my skelly mage on an elk. The pig bomb died, right? We ran that right through the door.
Oh yeah. It bled acid all over the people there.
Cool. But I think we're good.
Okay.
You're down. There's still an army. There's still more than a company of skeletons. Oh, the zombies. How many zombies died?
Most of them.
All of them?
4 groups of zombies.
Yeah, and even the half zombie. Okay. Still a company of skeletons. Still just over 100 skeletons. That I think, I mean, there will be some pillaging, right? I don't think Malcifer is not. He's probably distracted with other matters, and like he can't control all of the skeletons, right? They float over the wall, the living ones scattering, and I think they just marched through the outlying countryside of Pinespur, whatever settlements were left within this palisade wall,
Right.
and do a fair bit of pillaging before we rally the forces.
There were a lot of people in that area.
Right, so
And-
Malcifer spent 10 minutes or so collecting sacrifices while the skeletons advance and wreak more harm. We had that encounter with the witch, Helena, whatever she was.
Helena.
And yeah, so we got this scene of Malcifer standing over a pile of heads while skeletons murder in the background.
Yeah.
Advance. Can we get a scene of what this looks like? Right. So there was this crudely erected palisade wall built around, but there's probably a main road leading into Pinespur, right? And these were once the outlying farms.
The wall is built a little bit closer than the outlying farms, right? It's built just around the urban center. So the outlying farms you've already like walked through, and this is some sort of gap between them and the main urban center. So it's the like edges of town that are being attacked and harassed by skeletons. And I believe our fight was taking place right around dawn. So there are still like torches lit and stuff. And as the skeletons burst over the walls and through the gates and flood the town, small fires will start as skeletons accidentally knock over candles and torches and stuff.
The skeletons themselves, I don't think their instincts, I don't think they would think to grab a torch and set fire to the place.
Certainly not.
Right?
Yeah.
They're sensing the living and...
Right. There'll be small incidental fires that start. And when, everything is made out of wood and thatch, a small incidental fire can spread accidentally.
And eventually Malcifer will send word down the ranks of skeletal specialists to, pull back the pillagers, regather what remains of the army, and sort of like stand rank and file. And is there like a town square or something where
there is?
Where did the conversation with Helena take place, and where does like the road
just inside the city walls? Maybe
on like a big wide paved,
on the
like,
big avenue
or something. Wagon traffic
on the heated cobblestone roads of Pinespur.
Heated.
Yeah, gnomish pipes.
Keep snow from melting or from accumulating on them.
They initially started just heating people's homes and buildings with pipes, and then the pipes just had to run under the ground, and so accidentally they also ended up heating the rest of the streets. It is the only city in the world with heated streets that people are aware of.
And so this pile of heads lays across the street. Those get mounted on skeletal warriors' spears. Carried as our banner forward.
There is a market square in the middle of town, just beyond which is the central administration buildings, the Keep of Pinespur. which is still properly defended.
Okay, so Malcifer, with his company of Blood Knights and his advisors, you'd call them that, I think will have meandered into this keep, and then, like I said, send word out amongst the specialists to, pull back the pillaging skeletons and rally what remains of our forces. So I think over the half hour following the battle, the rank and file will assemble in this market square. In the light of the dawn, Malcifer is going to wrap up his executioner's axe to protect the poltergeist inside.
Excellent.
Set that back on the nightmare. I've got 3 skeletal horses that I totally forgot about in the battle. Maybe they come in with the hunting party or something like that. Okay. Who was like trailing behind the main force, or like scouting the edges. So unless something happened to them and they were spotted and ambushed, I think they'll eventually mosey on in, and they know the drill, right? So they will pick through the edge of the city, looting and strategic looting. I don't know, right? Like collecting dying or like living sacrifices.
Those that can't escape the battle.
Yeah.
The old, the young, the crippled.
Yeah.
The weaker animals of the herd.
Yeah. But in Malcifer's mind, many of these are his subjects too, right? Some of them, right? We've just liberated, right, the Gadians from Eridonian rule. So it's not going to be wanton slaughter. I don't know how, I don't know how a skeletal specialist will rationalize. Maybe they just assume that. Maybe they just they look at them, they smell their blood, and they're like, nope, you're definitely not a Gadian. You're an Eridonian invader, and your soul is sacrifice.
They will gather together sacrifices for you, certainly.
And in the dawn, we assemble in the Pine Spur Market. How many people were there in the city? Like, are there screams as they all flee to the keep? Do they board themselves up in their homes? What's the
you know how when there's a sound that's been going on for so long, you kind of just get used to it and stop really realizing it's there? That's how it sort of is with the screams of the people in the city. There were all the shouting on the walls and the fighting, and then you guys burst through, and then the shouts and the screams sort of continued, but it was the screams of the populace, and it's not until all your skeletons and all your undead are pulled back that they begin to fade and die down a little bit. Because in the meantime, they've been, running from the undead, or being killed by the undead, or just being terrified by them.
Yeah.
So eventually it settles, and quiet comes across the town of Pine Spur.
Is this the appropriate time to take care of a level up, or do you want to resolve the...
We have a little bit of conversation before you can rest and level.
Okay. So I think the people of Pine Spur look out from their boarded up homes, or from the keep if they're lucky, to see this company of skeletons sort of queue up in their market.
Yep.
Armies of winter occupying their beloved town.
From the stone wall of the small keep in the center of town, there pops an old man's head over through one of the windows, because it's not like a proper well-fortified keep with turrets and arrow loops and parapets and stuff. It's more of like a fancy stone house that is built to withstand sieges, sort of,
Is it a single square building? Does it have a more...
It's a single square building with 2.5 stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Parapets on the top and maybe...
Nope. Just regular housing and roofs. They're not supposed to have a castle here or any major defenses. So this is just like a well-crafted stone house that coincidentally would be, the windows are too small because of the bars across them to climb through. So it sort of would have to be sieged or sacked or burned or something. Yeah. And it's through this window that a head pokes. It looks like the sheriff that you saw before. And he looks out at your assembled
Pretender Lord
troops.
himself. Yeah, unless he like makes an extreme effort to make himself known, I think Malcifer finishes rallying his forces before approaching the keep and making whatever proclamations.
He waits for you. He's got nothing
so
but
like
time at this point.
Yeah. So skeletons assembled. Malcifer will advance towards the keep with his probably with just his company of blood knights. And like the few mismatched specialists that tag along. Right, there's the skeletal mage, and I think the hunters are out and about the city. So Malcifer eventually will declare the good news to the people of Gadia, right? Citizens of Gadia, you are free from the Eridonian invaders. After centuries of subjugation, the armies of winter have heard your pleas and rallied flesh and bone and spirit to answer your calls. And then Malcifer is like approaching the keep, probably intending to just march in and occupy the place. But I guess now maybe he's noticing the guy, like the pretender lord in the window.
Yep.
Well, I guess he'll eventually call out.
The pretender lord will call back to you.
Yeah, the pretender lord himself. Agent of Eridon. Throw open your gates and it will be a merciful fate for you.
And what of the people? He calls out from within.
The fine people of Gadia are finally free from your subjugation.
There's a pause, and he says, "Not yet! You haven't taken us yet!"
You called this curse upon yourself. You chose the path of blood. Let this end. Let the people's suffering end. And we'll see what the front door is made of, I guess. Right, so Malcifer approaches to like figure out how to walk on in and finish the job.
It's a heavy wooden door bound with metal. It would be very difficult to bash down. The castle, the keep itself is not too terribly big. You could surround it and just starve them out. Or you could try and bash down the doors. It doesn't really look like there's a lot of ways to attack people at the gates, so maybe you could just stand outside and bash it down. There's a lot of ways you could deal with a lord cooped up in a stone building.
Send for the hunters, I will say to, I think the skeletal mage, who will tromp off, who's a specialist at this point,
right.
Not a high enough level to raise it as a mage.
Right.
Who will tromp off on its elk to go find the hunters and bring the hunters to me, who I will send to find some chains, which we will strap to skeletal horses and the zombie elk. Probably the zombie elk is most effective. And just strap or like attach them to this door and yank it off its hinges.
Perfect.
So I think the poor lord of, and Malcifer steps back a ways from the gate and like makes these preparations. So I think over the next hour or two, unless they are going to make a bold play, they just watch as the armies of winter assemble and, gather these materials and
surround you.
What are they doing out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So the hunters are brought. We send them off to go loot the city for some chains. Are more sacrifices brought and assembled in this market, or was what we took care of last? Okay.
No, yeah, some more sacrifices are being brought to you, and it is mostly those that couldn't run away. I wasn't kidding earlier when I said it was the old and the very old, the very young, and the crippled that get brought to you. All those young and healthy and able to flee quickly have done so. And so you get brought, some grandpas and some grandmas, and maybe like a baby that got left in their pram somehow, and this sick kid who's got the measles and has just been coughing in his bed, and he got grabbed by a skeleton here or there.
The measles, huh?
Yeah, it's making a comeback in Gadia.
We are pretty backwards over here. Is his mother nearby?
No. No, he's not.
Kind of tempted to ease his suffering, but Malcifer is full. His soul is magnanimous. So we recently feasted on the dying soldiers on the battlefield, and so these are not immediately important.
There is maybe one person of note. There is a let me roll a die real quick here. There is a woman who is brought forward, and her leg is wrapped in bandages, and clearly it's badly wounded, but the rest of her seems to be fine. You can see this sort of like crustiness occurring over the lower half of her wrapped up leg, as if it's like oozing or leaching or something. And at first she looks like any of these other old, young, or sick or whatever, and your eyes linger across her for a moment, and she looks healthy except for this one badly wounded leg. I don't know if this is something that Malcifer wants to do, but it does cross your mind that a necrograph would sort of restore her. I mean, she'd have a dead leg, but it would be a usable dead leg.
I see what you're trying to do. I mean, there's some time. So while the hunters are looting the city, like I said, Malcifer's full, so he wasn't thinking of taking sacrifices, and he's probably a little disappointed in his skeletons. Like, these are clearly not the Eridonian interlopers. These are children and women and old and sick. And some of them maybe are of Gadian descent, or at least like the descendants of Gadian citizens. I don't know. We haven't really established a test to figure out if someone is an Eridonian. I don't know if one is ever going to exist. I think maybe we'll eventually settle on something arbitrary, but
historically, those sorts of tests have not always been. That's true. But at some point, you have to draw a line.
There's no actual difference. This is all in a mad necromancer's mind. But eventually, are they making a fuss, the prisoners, or
those that can whimper?
So eventually, their whimpers draw the attention of Malcifer, who comes over to inspect and looks on with disgust at the old and the sick and the dying.
Yeah.
Glares his nostrils at the young. There's the kid with measles who he's thinking about probably be a mercy to put him out of his misery. And then he sees this woman's leg and looks at it. You said it was like gangrenous, like she took a wound that wasn't treated well.
Something like that. It's wrapped up in bandages, and you can only see the like fluids that are crusting on the outside of the bandages. The leg itself is still shrouded under cloth.
How does she react to Malcifer like stopping over her? And is she seated or?
She is seated, or
so
I guess laying on the ground.
Probably gathered and like guarded by skeletons, but they're probably not totally restrained. I think they're just like defeated and they've given up, and right, they've been gathered.
Yeah,
snagged.
Defeat is a state of mind more than anything.
How many in all?
You've gathered 30 people here.
Thanks.
Most of them are the elderly. There are a few very young, and then a handful of sick, or wounded, or injured, or maimed. The woman is looking emotionally, spiritually defeated. I think she's propped herself up maybe against a barrel or a wall in the street, with her legs kind of splayed out in front of her, with that sort of like, well, this is the end look in her eyes. You know, the It's been a bad game. We've been defending towers and losing ground the entire time, and just make it end.
Yeah. Is this a soldier?
Mm-mm.
Or is, okay.
No.
Say we as in... Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was making a Dota or MOBA joke about just slowly losing territory and just wanting it to be over. Please take the core. I'm done.
All right. So Malcifer takes a dagger and like removes the bandage. Or takes a hunting knife and like cuts the bandage to get a look at her wound. So I was asking what her reaction was to having like the Lord of Winter staring down at her.
She tries to not look at what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, she just turns her head to the side, casts her gaze away, closes her eyes, and
he wrinkles his nose to the smell and cuts open the bandage to get it and like pokes aside the wrappings to get a look at the wound.
It's bad. You can smell it before you even start cutting away the bandages, and when you do, there's a long slash, maybe taking up a quarter or so of her shin, just on the inside of her left leg, and it's right at that meaty point where the side of your calf starts. It's a deep wound, and it's sort of just like split open and oozing and pussing, and it smells like old nasty cheese. Yeah. It's not good. You're no doctor, but that ain't a good thing to have.
I am an aficionado. A student of anatomy, embalming. What happened here? Asks Malcifer.
She looks up at you, a little shocked that you're asking her, and it takes her a moment to like piece together that you're not here to eat her leg or something. And she sort of like mutters under her breath something about like we were replacing the roof and a board came down and cut it open. Some insignificant work injury that south. Yeah.
All right. Malcifer is looking absent-mindedly at the child with measles. I could fix this, he muses.
She looks at you in absolute horror, assuming you mean like removing her skeleton from her body or whatever.
To the child, Malcifer says, "Where's your mother, boy?" Or is the child even responses?
The child is... I will see if he can respond. He is awake, but sort of in a daze. No. He's beyond speaking at this point.
Yeah. Have no fear. Winter brings mercy. So we're gonna set up a ritual here to sacrifice the child with measles, put it out of its misery, and use its soul to fuel the necrograph. What do I need for the necrograph? It needs to be like a zombie foot. Could I use her own foot in it? Like, could I like cut off her foot and like just regraft it as like the dead and decaying foot?
Yeah.
That's the most sensible way to do this, or?
You could remove it, cast the spells on it to turn it into something you can graft, and then graft it right back to her leg if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean that seems to be fully functional. Or would it be better to get it?
It would be fully functional, but it would still be like gangrenous and smelling and gross. I don't know how much, like, how important quality of life is to you. Maybe the fresh leg of a dead soldier would be less disgusting.
One big foot and one small foot.
Well, we're talking about necromancy here. You're never going to have a perfect solution. She can have her old smelly leg functioning, or she can have someone else's, like, maybe a little bit too long for her body leg that doesn't smell. There's no perfect solution here. Unless you want to go find someone with a similar leg and, harvest it.
Malcifer will send a specialist off to find a zombie foot of appropriate quality. The finest of zombie feet, please.
One of the archers gets dragged over towards you. A woman, her legs are fine. She just has a spear through the throat. The others wince in horror as this dead soldier gets dragged over by a skeleton and plopped at your feet.
Yeah, and Malcifer sets to work. Only occasionally pausing to narrate his actions and assuming it all to be self-evident.
Yeah.
The blessings and glory of the winter gods. And so Malcifer, chops off the foot of the zombie archer in front of the prisoners.
Leg, right? Because it's not just
leg,
the foot. It's
cool. As much as we need.
Right? The people, one of the grandmothers tries to cover the eyes of the children as you do this process. One of the grandpas tries to stand, but his arthritic hip won't let him, and he plops back down.
Hold them down, Malcifer says to his nearby undead, to restrain the woman, the recipient of the necrograph, as well as the child. In order to do a soul siphon, do I need like a ritual circle? Let's see.
I don't think so.
No, I think this is fine. Okay. So we will soul siphon this child's life into the creation of a necrograph. Does the necrograph get sewed on before it is animated?
I think it's probably all part of the process. Like you enchant, you do some magic to the leg ahead of time, then you attach it and you do like some more magic,
So does the sacrifice get made first? During? Is the child just held and its life force slowly siphoned away while the ritual goes on?
That one, yeah.
Right.
I like that one.
As the child is being sacrificed, Malcifer will say, it is the ways of winter that the weak may feed the strong. That the chosen will survive. And in this death, there is a mercy. And we'll go ahead and siphon this poor kid's soul into a necrograph. I don't think there's anything about this one having to be willing, so she'll thank me later. But she's held down. Malcifer tourniquets her. I don't know. Is it above the knee, or is it just gonna be like the calf down?
I think it's gonna have to be above the knee if you want to be sure to get rid of all of the rot.
Yeah, that way she'll get a nice strong zombie knee. Big bulging soldier's leg.
Yeah.
So Malcifer takes the tourniquets her at the hip. I think a big axe probably is better for this than sawing through it with a hunting knife.
Just a quick whoosh. That's fine.
I think you can cleave a femur bone with a good swing from a bardish, right?
Maybe, and if you don't, the necrograph will take care of whatever gets messed up, It'll bind to the leg above, and if it's a little messed up,
it doesn't have to be stitched.
Well, it does have to be stitched. It certainly does, but like once it's stitched and the magic is completed, it binds-ish. Yeah.
So she's held down, a tourniquet is applied. Is there any possibility that she dies in this process? Like, that's not mentioned in the spell, but like, is this meant to be risky?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're performing surgery in a pre-modern medicine era, you run a risk of death. I'll give her a maybe like a con check to survive. Like her base con, not her modified con, because she's diseased. So 4, 5, and 2 is 11. Yeah, she passes. No problem. Actually, she rolls a 10 on the die, so she barely passes, but she's fine.
Do you have anatomy? Like, does the tourniquet not help, or is that just the baseline?
I think the tourniquet is what gives her a
torturing.
con check,
Could I classify this as torture and use that skill to keep her alive through the pain?
I suppose, yes. Torture. The torture proficiency is how to inflict the most pain without causing someone to die. So it does have a certain amount of make sure you don't pierce these arteries, and there's a certain amount of life saving.
She passes the con check on her own, so she survives the amputation. Maybe even remains conscious through the thing.
Mm-hmm.
My poltergeist flees the sunlight and immediately dashes 60 feet to the eave underneath the eave of a house, or is a shadow enough to hide from the sun?
It is.
Direct sunlight that causes damage.
Yeah, and it's morning, right? So the sun is rising in the east, and so you've got plenty of long shadows that you can still hide behind. For
hiding in one of these shadows is the poltergeist, a blood-soaked shadow of his soul, lurking in the shadows. Chop off her leg, necrograph it, and I use up the whole soul, right? You can't split it. You can't soul siphon and then use the remainder for yourself.
Correct.
Okay.
But more important than that, his soul is not enough to fix this, because
really,
with measles, he only has a little life left in him. His lifespan is quite short at this point.
Is that how it works, eh?
Yeah, if you had cured him of measles, then his lifespan would be longer, but at this point, he barely has much life left.
Okay, so it doesn't even do anything?
No, it'll do some. You'll still need to expend 3 years, though.
So with measles, he had 20 years left or something?
Yeah, because measles isn't always 100% fatal. But it has crippled his system, and he was definitely going to die in about 10 years, if not sooner, from other complications.
Okay.
Under the best of circumstances, he only had 10 years left. Wow. Although had he continued to live in this impoverished environment, he might have lived quite a bit less. I've been actually trying to find what the fatality rate for measles is, but I can't find any pre-vaccination and modern medicine statistics yet.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, I don't know that you die from complications later. I think it's it kills you pretty, you die from the initial infection.
Mm-hmm.
Or, it does sometimes cripple you.
Yeah, I think it does. It can cripple
pockmarked
some of your systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. So Malcifer is a benevolent lord, and he will give up 3 years of his own life for this necrograph as a show of the power of the gods of winter.
Mm-hmm.
Behold, the power of the gods of winter. Look on, noble Gadians, and rejoice.
She looks surprised. In fact, the other people nearby, they thought you were gathering them to eat them or kill them, and you did sacrifice that child with measles, and they watched him wither and shrivel before you as you siphoned his soul out. But you've also healed this woman, and you're talking about making things better, and the people gathered around you are confused.
As the appropriate response when you are, captured by a madman. But I think around this time, the specialists have, maybe they've already gathered the chains, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have more pressing matters to attend to.
You do. And as you are going to look into those more pressing matters, another thing kind of catches your glimpse, catches your eye. And this horde of people that have been gathered, one person has tried to make themselves scarcely known, trying to nestle between this barrel and this cart full of hay. And you see a person still dressed in the trappings of one of the soldiers that you were fighting on the walls.
Are they sneaking in amongst our ranks, trying to hide from the...
No, they've got an arrow wound in their back thigh, in the back of their thigh. Looks like they were wounded, fled the wall, and then got captured and dragged here, and has been trying to cower away from you.
Oh, they're amongst the prisoners.
They are amongst the prisoners, yes, a former soldier. I don't know if that's something that you want to pay special attention to, or if it doesn't matter.
I think Malcifer will approach this cowering person.
Okay.
And try to I don't know, try to determine where their loyalties lie. So they were amongst the prisoners captured here.
But had like managed to squeeze into a tight space because the skeletons aren't super great guards.
What does their uniform look like?
They look like an archer, leather armor, no chain, no shield. They've just got, the trappings of whatever house they were serving. They look at you. I roll to determine who they are. It's another woman, maybe 28 years old, 29, youngish.
You're a soldier, Malcifer says. I think grabbing what's the tabard? Is there a tabard with a sigil of some house?
Of a ship sailing under a crescent moon.
How did you get here? How did you survive? Malcifer looks to his skeletons, being like, "Why didn't they eat this one?"
She looks down and ashamed and says, "I was wounded and fled."
Who do you serve?
No one.
Malcifer looks to this banner. He's not a proficient herald. He refuses to acknowledge the houses of Eridon, so he probably doesn't understand what this house is, what this tabard is.
Right.
What were you before the war?
Carpenter. She says. Stationed in the Lindell Plain. That's where my home is.
I ask again, where do your loyalties lie?
She looks confused. To myself and my family, if they're still alive?
Pretty good answer. Where is your family from?
We're near the Direwood. There's a small town next to a small beach. You wouldn't know it. Last I saw, they were making preparations for the mercenaries to arrive.
You referring to our mercenaries, or likely to the undead, or to mercenaries that they hired?
I don't think you know.
Yeah. You refer to the armies of winter, Gadian mercenaries, or foreigners?
Foreigners. She kind of stumbles over your terminology here. It's clearly not in alignment with hers. Weatherlight mercenaries.
Mercenaries from Weatherlight?
She nods.
Have they landed? Also, I think looks to the southeast or wherever Weatherlight is.
She says,
thinking this through.
I don't know. I got pulled away from my carpentry work because I played with the bow a lot. And they pressed me into service, sent me here.
She was describing where she was from, but you told me I wouldn't have known it. I know that the Lindell Plain is east of Blumwood.
Yeah. So her own specific village is, it's some ditchwater place or some backwater place built in a ditch, right? Some nothing little village out in the middle of the plain. But she's talking about this area right here, right? Oops, let me show chat. Right next to the Direwood in the somewhere around here.
Yeah. How long ago did your family settle the Lindell Plain?
I think we've always been there. At least as long as Gadia has been its own island. Oh my god, my phone is starting to talk to me out of nowhere. This is super creepy.
The robots want to play Dungeons and Dragons with us. All right. What's wrong?
I don't know. It's bringing up flight information from like weeks ago, and there's no back button. There's no buttons, guys. I can't. It's super borked. I don't know what's going on. That was really creepy and weird. Sorry. I did not mean to disrupt.
You're fine. I'm always disruptive. Malcifer is satisfied with this soldier's answers. He will remove their tabard, like tear off the sigil of whatever pretender house she has on, and discard it. But she gets to hang out with the rest of the prisoners until we decide what to do with them. And we're gonna turn to the door to the keep.
All right, at the keep, you can see the head of the pretender looking through the window still, watching as the hunters arrive, the skeletal horses arrive, chains are brought.
And affix these to the door, affix them to the beasts, and let's do this. Are the skeletal specialists clever enough to figure out how to attach these chains to the door, or does Malcifer need to intervene or find someone living to solve these problems?
Let's see. Specialists have advanced intelligence. They can tie up prisoners, build a palisade wall, operate sails, ride mounts, mix martinis, etc. So yeah, they can attach these. They've got enough intelligence to do that. Okay. That's right. Skeletal specialists are really built to be your skeletal bartenders, guys. That's their desired purpose.
Are there hinges exposed on the outside, or I'm trying to think how they would even figure out how to do it. Would they need to carve into, pound, chip into the wood to fit a chain through the metal bracings?
Yeah, I think they've got a hook on the end of the chain, and they have to hack into the wood to get the hook to go through one of the metal bindings. It'll probably take a while. They might break some stuff off before they eventually break down the door.
Yeah, so it's probably an hour of the specialists chipping away at the door to mount in these chains, and they probably hook up 4 or more chains to each corner of the door and run those to the zombie elk and the skeletal horses.
Yeah.
If the keep were putting up any resistance, there would be ample time for them to stop this, but I think they just cower in horror as their
building does not have... I mean, it's a stone building, but there's no arrow loops, there's no murder holes. They have no real recourse for counterattacks at the front door. It's not designed in that regard, despite it being called a keep. So, a couple hours probably pass as the door eventually gets ripped down.
Yeah, we mount it, and then or chain it attached to the mounts. They pull as hard as they can. Maybe some pop loose and need to be refixed. Maybe a binding buckles and the door doesn't budge, so we have to move to hook on a different one.
But eventually it comes down.
We pull the door off its hinges.
And you can see the last-ditch desperate attempt of the people inside. They've gathered all the furniture and thrown it all in the doorway and piled up as big of a barricade as possible. Without regard. There's some beautiful woodworking there that has just been casually thrown against the wall to try and stop something. You can see where the beautiful cherry wood has been scratched and scarred by these people trying to use it as a defensive maneuver. It's almost worthy of murder itself to destroy such fine pieces of furniture to save yourselves.
Do I have any estimation how many might be living in the building?
Only the cowards refuse to fight.
Yeah, so I think Malcifer is going to breach the keep with a company, or not the company, with a spear of Blood Knights and the spear of Hunters.
Yeah.
And we just like bust in. Malcifer is like shouting, you know, any well, I guess we'll go first to free Freddy from the jail if he's still there.
He is.
That's it in the keep, or was it a separate jail?
I think it was a separate jail cell out near the keep, like in the courtyard beyond. So Freddy can be freed. There are other people in the jails already. I don't know if you want to free those people as well, or if you just want to free Freddy.
Are the keys around, or do we have to bust them out? Like
they're
guards
on a hook.
Abandoned the jail and just left the prisoners there?
Yeah. There's some keys left on a hook right up to the top of the staircase leading down.
We'll leave the prisoners in their cells to be dealt with later. The thought crosses my mind to use the jail to tie up the regular prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
maybe
let's free
sacrifice
Freddy.
the existing prisoners.
Makes this detour to the prison while the beasts of burden are working on the door.
Mm-hmm.
They said there were hours.
Yeah.
So we'll meander over to the jail. Find a spare set of keys in a drawer on a hook or something.
Mm-hmm.
And find Freddy in his cell.
Yep. He looks at you surprised and gets to his feet. He looks like he has not been particularly well fed or well treated. But he manages to stand up and give you a deep bow.
Good old Freddy. Freddy, my man. You live.
I do.
God's be praised.
Have the foreigners been removed from our lands, finally, my lord?
We have shattered the Eridonian forces. The Lord's house is all but breached. You look famished.
They have not treated me especially well. He holds up his hands, which you can see the fingers are bent back at uncomfortable angles as if they've been broken and then healed in that way. Looks like he's been interrogated by Chinese.
Yeah. What? Yeah, there's not really rations of food around, are there?
Oh yeah, you're in a town. There's tons of food everywhere. You just have to go down to like the market that's been abandoned.
Fine. Hero's all ready to feed Freddy of my own flesh, but alas, we'll just get him fed in the market square. I will pull a specialist from a nearby skeleton company and instruct them to accompany Freddy anywhere he goes and ensure that no errant undead do him any harm.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he is unmarked. I think he's pre-mark. He was captured
Freddy?
before we had a chance, yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So he gets his very own specialist bodyguard to make sure that no undead attack.
Mm-hmm. So you can, how do we say, you can feed him, and if you want to mark him, it can be done as well. You've got your Bardish with you.
The mark is
you don't have
with
the brand.
Yeah, I don't think I care.
So that's back in town. Okay.
Back to the
So he'll need maybe like an escort back home to be kept safe from the zombies in the woods and the other undead around.
Mm-hmm. Ready. Winter's Reach has been a lawless hellhole without him.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. The rest of the prisoners, I just leave in the jail. They're probably screaming at me, but we can sacrifice them later once we sort through them.
Yeah.
now we return to breaching the keep. So with a full spear of blood knights and the hunter's spear, we breach the keep and march in, quelling any remaining resistance, and seize the throne room.
All right. You find the pretender, as we've been calling him, locked with one loyal guard in the very top room, in the like half room that is the third floor, or the half story.
There's only the two of them left.
It's just the two of them.
Well, this is interesting. Who does this guy think he is? This is it, Malcifer says. I think as we storm into this back room, we were probably expecting to find people all over the keep, but I think we just breach an empty keep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And eventually in the top back room, there's just this one false lord and his knight. And that's
something like that. It's the sheriff who's been the interim lord in town, and kind of like a surprisingly older woman. I mean, younger than him, because he's 70 or 80 years old. She's in her 60s, and she's got a spear, but she doesn't look like she knows how to use it. And she's standing beside him. Maybe it's his wife. Maybe it's some loyal soldier. She's wearing armor.
This is it, Malcifer says.
You'll never. You
I'll
murderer.
never what?
You'll never succeed.
You brought death upon this land. You invoked winter's curse.
I did nothing. I've just tried to serve my people. You've brought death to our doorsteps. How many have you killed?
Your people brought death to these lands 300 years ago. And finally, the people of Gadia are free once more.
The poor old sheriff is going to make his move. He's going to leap to the attack with his sword. I don't think it's going to last very well. He's got 8 blood knights against him and a Malcifer with a full complement of spirit armor up, so...
Yeah, I'm trying to think what even happens here. I guess maybe he gets one... does he provoke OAs? I don't know that they take it.
He's a 3rd level fighter.
Okay.
With a long sword, so he gets +3 to hit. And that's it. Maybe he'll roll a natural 20. No, he rolls a 13. He comes to attack you.
Doesn't even it clatters off of Malcifer's plate.
Yeah.
I liked Chat's idea of trapping him in a mirror.
You want to hold person him?
Yeah, using hold person, but I think he just gets skewered by the blood knights before Malcifer even really has a chance to react. What is how many of them can get in there and stab him? Can it a full
4?
8?
4? No, I don't think he can't be fully surrounded, but you're in the room, so you can get maybe 2 in the front and 2 on the sides, because Malcifer's in the middle.
Oh,
so you can get
a natural 20 and a hit.
Oh god.
If we're doing crits, it's gonna be 3d8s plus some things.
Yeah, let's do crits here because we're not doing mass combat. He's got 23 HP.
Skeletal Greater is what they're called. It's 3rd level, huh? We can turn him into we can raise him back as a Blood Knight.
Yep. HP
+5 to hit. Oh, they do D10 damage. D10 +1 +2.
Ooh,
so
for the Blood Knights?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's weird, but cool. It's a lot with a longsword. 3d10 plus 4.
I think it was going to be D8 plus 3 for specialization, but I changed it to D10 plus 2 to give it a more fun range to play with.
Sure.
It should average out to the same thing.
So just 27 points of damage.
Oh yeah, he has
guy.
23 HP. He drops to the ground.
But not, he's not dead.
He's not dead yet. No, he's still spilling
Drops
his
unconscious.
lifeblood.
Malcifer catches him and eats his soul. Pretender, your soul is forfeit.
You can get half a year off of him. He was 88
You
years
will.
old already.
Half a year.
Half a year.
You will serve winter yet. What of the knight that is with him?
Well, I guess you get less than half a year
wife?
because he had like 6 months left to live. And if you get 10% of what you get from him, it's like insufficient. Like there's barely any soul left here
6 months? I literally could have just let him starve out.
He would have starved to death.
Old age
Yeah.
in here.
Yeah, he would have died of old age before he
Who does this guy
starved.
think he is?
He's Saxton, the sheriff of Pinespur. That's all he cares.
Is this his wife in the room with him?
Yes, this is his
okay.
elderly wife. He's 88, she's 74. He's a cradle robber to the end. But she's no fighter, and she drops her spear and falls to her knees, sort of weeping silently to herself.
I think we just reap her soul too.
Okay. How much life did she have left in her? Let me determine her maximum lifespan right here. Ooh. That's not... Oh my god, I can't even... There we go. I said 74, right? So she was going to live to be 90. So that's 16, so 1.6 years plus 0.05 years.
0.05. All right.
So you get 0.165 years.
Is there a throne in this keep anywhere?
There is. Yeah, you walked past it on your way up here. There's not much of a throne room, though. It's a shadow of its former self. It's more of like a meeting hall that has a very comfortable chair on one end and some other chairs nearby. It's very clearly like sort of a throne room. And if Malcifer was a more educated man about the actual goings-on between Gadia and Pinespur, Gadia and Eridon, you're not supposed... The oppression of the Gadian people means no keeps, no castles, and also no proper throne room. You can just have a meeting hall. And so this is the, shame of Gadia, that they can't even have a proper throne room, and that their king has been reduced to a baron. And their walls have been ripped down, and their lands have been given away.
Have Malcifer seen this place?
Never.
Yeah, so he had visions of, his armies breaching the wall and him, and then throwing open their gates in defeat and welcoming their new lord striding in and sitting atop the throne. But there's, a little bit lackluster. I think Malcifer sits with his blood knights in the, with his hunters, I guess, in the meeting hall here in Pinespur.
All right. Why don't we take a break here, and we'll come back on the other side of the break with a little bit more Malcifer and a little bit more Dicing with Death. See you guys on the other side.